All right, all right, all right. Are we live? Hello? Are we live? Hello? All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. Testing, testing. One, two, three. Testing, testing. One, two, three. All right, this is a temporary transmission open to Ricardo Sunshine. And Ricardo Sunshine only. If you're out there, amigo, you said you had something you want to say. Hey, free gift from God's here. I got 20 minutes, guys. 20 minutes. I got to stick to the timer. Anybody want to jump on for 20 minutes? We're talking about happiness, emotional states, and yeah, that's it. I had a question from Ricardo Sunshine, and I was curious if he wanted to tune in real quick. And free gift from God, you could probably answer the question too. I don't even remember. He had a question for me or a comment, and so I don't really remember what it was. But I said that flow state seemed like a pretty well-adjusted fellow to me, and that happiness is just a passing emotion. And he seemed to counter my claim, so I was curious as to what was going on. But yeah, I don't have long, so I'll just tune in here for a minute, guys. I got to get in the fucking shower. I got to shit, shower, and shave and head off to work here in a minute. So I really got to stick to my guns on my limited amount of time here. But yeah, I thought I would open it up real quick and see if he wanted to drop by and say hello. I was over there watching Jack Talcott. If you guys haven't watched Jack, you might like to watch him. He's on every day for a couple of hours. He's got an interesting story. He's in DC right now. He's got a really fun kind of Jerry Springer vibe over at his channel here on YouTube. Just check it out. I think it's just called the Talcott channel. It's a worthwhile endeavor. I like to tune in. A lot of interesting characters show up. Occasionally, I like to go on panel and chat with them. I think Jack's a good guy. He's trying to get it done. He's trying to do good magic. Interesting story at the dorm here today, guys. The hotel. The next neighbor over, like two doors down, was really fucking this morning. I woke about an hour ago, and they were just going at it, man. They were screaming and it was just yelling, and I was like, "Fuck, is this somebody getting raped next door or something?" But no, it seemed like pleasure screams, and it was kind of creepy because it almost felt like maybe there was a succubus in the next room. But I didn't hear any masculine voice. All I heard was a feminine voice. So then I thought maybe she was just over there just slamming a fucking dildo in or something. I didn't know. But yeah, fun stuff. I think I can still hear them screaming a little bit. But yeah, they're getting at it. So that was kind of interesting. Fun way to wake up on a Tuesday morning. And I always wonder if it was morning sex or if they were still up from last night. Because I went to sleep pretty early last night, about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And so it was lights out for me. They might have just been finishing off the evening as far as I could tell. I don't know, like I said, who knows? But yeah, so that's what it is. I guess if Ricardo Sunshine's not going to show up, nobody's going to show up. I get the link in the chat there. I'm not going to hang around and bother you guys with any empty banter. But yeah, we could start off the day with the old channel updates. Frank Monday coming at you once again, like Finnegan. If you've got a yen to expand your kin, then let's get zen. Broadcasting from the central kingdom of the celestial dragon, Twilight Zone, Old Peking, another live jive archive for the record book. It is April 29th, 2025, here in Twilight Zone, Old Peking. And welcome back, Wizard, Warrior, Wanderer, Wayfarer, and Wildcat alike, wherever you are, whoever you are, and whenever you receive this transmission. Join me in the adoration of Abraxas if you know it. Holy art thou, Lord of the universe, the vast and the mighty one, creator of heaven and earth, maker of all things visible and invisible. We adore thee and we invoke thee. Send us one of your divine spiritual agents, our holy guardian angel, to protect and guide us through the innumerable snares of the earthly sphere, and a cleansing wind to disperse all negativity and endless human opinion. Teach us those secret things which we must know for the completion of the great work and the glory of thine ineffable name, Adonai. So it is commanded and confirmed. So mote it be. Amen. Hail unto thee who art Ra in thy rising, even unto thee who art Ra in thy strength, who travellest over the heavens at the uprising of the sun. Tahuti standeth in his splendor at the prow, and Ra Horkoit abideth at the helm. Hail unto thee from the abodes of dreamland. All right. Well, I opened up an opportunity for him. I thought he might come by and say hello. Ricardo Sunshine's been on here a couple times. He hangs out with Axolotl, Zephyr Axolotl, right? So they're a pair. They seem to be a unit. Yeah, it is what it is. Remember, O neophyte, goodness alone is power, silence is strength, will regaineth omnipotence, and love lieth at the foundation. Your Grand Wizard of the Esoteric Order of Dagon, Frank Monday, coming at you once again, like Finnegan, right? 100-day challenge, guys, Way of the Psionic Agent. Make sure you get in there over at buymeacoffee.com and check the syllabus so that you can stay on page with me, right? And I'm in my 4th week of practices, so maybe you'd like to join the challenge. Just 100 days. The challenge is to do 10 minutes a day of the practice, 10 minutes a day, every day. Try to make it at around the same time, right? That's the best way to get it done. Hit the likes and subscribe, all that happy horse shit, guys. That puts the lead in my pencil, man. It really does. If you get over there to buy me a coffee and put a little something in the tip jar. I don't have any other stories for you right now. Not a lot going on. So I thought I would open it up and see if anybody wanted to drop by and say hello, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I will roll off into the abodes of the future. I remind you guys, get over there and check out the Jack Talcott show. Good fun. They're live right now. I might No, I'm not going to listen any longer, but I'll listen to the replay later throughout the day. And yeah, I got to head off to work, guys. So have a great day. Thanks for stopping by and checking in. I hope you all get zen again. Hey, maybe I'll leave a video playing while I take my shower. And then when I come back, you never know, I might have attracted an audience. Let me see if I can do it. I hit the button, but my computer seems to be lagging again. I don't know why I don't know why it lags so much, man. It's kind of a bummer. What should I play? Some grim face motivation? I don't know if I get struck playing other people's videos though. Well, here's a video I made, so I'll just go ahead and throw this on and let it play while I jump in the shower, man. And maybe when I come back, someone will have tuned in and said hello. That might garner me some interest, huh? That might give me a few hours here on the old Happy Land transmission, right? So put on your seatbelt, guys, sit back and relax, and I'll see you after the shower.
Lunar Light Entertainment proudly presents a short story by Howard Philip Lovecraft, The Silver Key.
See ya.
When Randolph Carter was 30, he lost the key of the Gate of Dreams. Prior to that time, he had made up for the prosiness of life by nightly excursions to strange and ancient cities beyond space, and lovely, unbelievable garden lands across ethereal seas. But as middle age hardened upon him, he felt that these liberties slipping away little by little, until at last he was cut off altogether. No more could his galleys sail up the river Okranos past the gilded spires of Thran, where forgotten palaces with vain. He had read much of things as they philosophers had taught him to look into the which shape his thoughts and fancies, which there's no difference. Real things and those born of inward dreamings, and no cause to value the one above the other.
To value the one above the other. Something happened, guys.
Lunar Light Entertainment proudly presents.
So I had to reset it.
A short story by Howard Philip Lovecraft, The Silver Key.
Enjoy the transmission.
When Randolph Carter was 30, he lost the key of the Gate of Dreams. Prior to that time, he had made up for the prosiness of life by nightly excursions to strange and ancient cities beyond space, and lovely, unbelievable garden lands across ethereal seas. But as middle age hardened upon him, he felt that these liberties slipping away little by little, until at last he was cut off altogether. No more could his galleys sail up the river Okranos past the gilded spires of Thran, or his elephant caravans tramp through perfumed jungles in Cled, where forgotten palaces with veined ivory columns sleep lovely and unbroken under the moon. He had read much of things as they are and talked with too many people. Well-meaning philosophers had taught him to look into the logical relations of things and analyze the processes which shape his thoughts and fancies. Wonder had gone away, and he had forgotten that all life is only a set of pictures in the brain, among which there is no difference betwixt those born of real things and those born of inward dreamings, and no cause to value the one above the other. Custom had dinned into his ears a superstitious reverence for that which tangibly and physically exists, and had made him secretly ashamed to dwell in visions. Wise men told him his simple fancies were inane and childish, and he believed it because he could see that they might easily be so. What he failed to recall was that the deeds of reality are just as inane and childish, and even more absurd because their actors persist in fancying them full of meaning and purpose, as the blind cosmos grinds aimlessly on from nothing to something and from something back to nothing again, neither heeding nor knowing the wishes or existence of the minds that flicker for a second now and then in the darkness. They had chained him down to things that are, and had then explained the workings of those things till mystery had gone out of the world, when he complained and longed to escape into twilight realms where magic molded all the little vivid fragments and prized associations of his mind into vistas of breathless expectancy and unquenchable delight. They had turned him instead toward the newfound prodigies of science, bidding him find wonder in the atom's vortex and mystery in the sky's dimensions. And when he had failed to find these boons in things whose laws are known and measurable, they told him he lacked imagination and was immature because he preferred dream illusions to the illusions of our physical creation. So Carter had tried to do as others did and pretended that the common events and emotions of earthly minds were more important than the fantasies of rare and delicate souls. He did not dissent when they told him that the animal pain of a stuck pig or dyspeptic plowman in real life is a greater thing than the peerless beauty of Nerath with its 100 carven gates and domes of Chalcedony, which he dimly remembered from his dreams, and under their guidance he cultivated a painstaking sense of pity and tragedy. Once in a while, though, he could not help seeing how shallow, fickle, and meaningless all human aspirations are, and how emptily our real impulses contrast with those pompous ideals we profess to hold. Then he would have recourse to the polite laughter they had taught him to use against the extravagance and artificiality of dreams, for he saw that the daily life of our world is every inch as extravagant and artificial, and far less worthy of respect because of its poverty in beauty and its silly reluctance to admit its own lack of reason and purpose. In this way he became a kind of humorist, for he did not see that even humor is empty in a mindless universe devoid of any true standard of consistency or inconsistency. In the first days of his bondage he had turned to the gentle churchly faith endeared to him by the naive trust of his fathers, for thence stretched mystic avenues which seemed to promise escape from life. Only on closer view did he mark the starved fancy and beauty, the stale and prosy triteness, and the owlish gravity and grotesque claims of solid truth which reigned boresomely and overwhelmingly among most of its professors, or feel to the fool the awkwardness with which it sought to keep alive as literal fact the outgrown fears and guesses of a primal race confronting the unknown. It wearied Carter to see how solemnly people tried to make earthly reality out of old myths, which every step of their boasted science confuted. And this misplaced seriousness killed the attachment he might have kept for the ancient creeds, had they been content to offer the sonorous rites and emotional outlets in their true guise of ethereal fantasy. But when he came to study those who had thrown off the old myths, he found them even more ugly than those who had not. They did not know that beauty lies in harmony, and that loveliness of life has no standard amidst an aimless cosmos, save only its harmony with the dreams and the feelings which gone before and blindly molded our little spheres out of the rest of chaos. They did not see that good and evil and beauty and ugliness are only ornamental fruits of perspective, whose sole value lies in their linkage to what chance made our fathers think and feel, and whose finer details are different for every race and culture. Instead, they either denied these things altogether or transferred them to the crude, vague instincts which they shared with the beasts and peasants, so that their lives were dragged malodorously out in pain, ugliness, and disproportion, yet filled with a ludicrous pride at having escaped from something no more unsound than that which still held them. They had traded the false gods of fear and blind piety for those of license and anarchy. Carter did not taste deeply of these modern freedoms, for their cheapness and squalor sickened a spirit-loving beauty alone, while his reason rebelled at the flimsy logic with which their champions tried to gild brute impulse with a sacredness stripped from the idols they had discarded. He saw that most of them, in common with their cast-off priestcraft, could not escape from the delusion that life has a meaning apart from that which men dream into it, and could not lay aside the crude notion of ethics and obligations beyond those of beauty, even when all nature shrieked of its unconsciousness and impersonal unmorality in the light of their scientific discoveries. Warped and bigoted with preconceived illusions of justice, freedom, and consistency, they cast off the old lore and the old ways with the old beliefs, nor ever stopped to think that the lore and those ways were the sole makers of their present thoughts and judgments, and the sole guides and standards in a meaningless universe without fixed aims or stable points of reference. Having lost these artificial settings, their lives grew void of direction and dramatic interest, till at length they strove to drown their ennui in bustle and pretended usefulness, noise and excitement, barbaric display and animal sensation. When these things paled, disappointed, or grew nauseous through revulsion, they cultivated irony and bitterness, and found fault with the social order. Never could they realize that their brute foundations were as shifting, as contradictory as the gods of their elders, and that the satisfaction of one moment is the bane of the next. Calm, lasting beauty comes only in dream, and this solace the world had thrown away when in its worship of the real it threw away the secrets of childhood and innocence. Amidst this chaos of hollowness and unrest, Carter tried to live as befitted a man of keen thought and good heritage. With his dreams fading under the ridicule of the age, he could not believe in anything, but the love of harmony kept him close to the ways of his race and station. He walked impassive through the cities of men, and sighed because no vista seemed fully real, because every flash of yellow sunlight on tall roofs and every glimpse of balustrated plazas in the first lamps of evening served only to remind him of dreams he had once known, and to make him homesick for the ethereal lands he no longer knew how to find. Travel was only a mockery, and even the Great War stirred him but little, though he served from the first in the Foreign Legion of France. For a while he sought friends, but soon grew weary of the crudeness of their emotions, and the sameness and earthiness of their visions. He felt vaguely glad that all his relatives were distant and out of touch with him, for they could not have understood his mental life. That is, none but his grandfather and great-uncle Christopher could, and they were long dead. Then he began once more the writing of books, which he had left off when dreams first failed him, but here, too, was there no satisfaction or fulfillment, for the touch of earth was upon his mind, and he could not think of lovely things as he had done of yore. Ironic humor dragged down all the twilight minarets he reared, and the earthly fear of improbability blasted all the delicate and amazing flowers in his fairy gardens. The convention of assumed pity spilt mawkishness on his characters, while the myth of an important reality and significant human events and emotions debased all his high fantasy into thin veiled allegory and cheap social satire. His new novels were successful as his old ones had never been, and because he knew how empty they must be to please an empty herd, he burned them and ceased writing. They were very graceful novels in which he urbanely laughed at the dreams he lightly sketched, but he saw that their sophistication had sapped all their life away. It was after this that he cultivated deliberate illusion and dabbled in the notions of the bizarre and the eccentric as an antidote for the commonplace. Most of these, however, soon showed their poverty and barrenness, and he saw that the popular doctrines of occultism are as dry and inflexible as those of science, yet without even the slender palliative of truth to redeem them. Gross stupidity, falsehood, and muddled thinking are not dream, and form no escape from life to a mind trained above their level. So Carter bought stranger books and sought out deeper and more terrible men of fantastic erudition, delving into arcana of consciousness that few have trod, and learning things about the secret pits of life, legend, and immemorial antiquity which disturbed him ever afterward. He decided to live on a rarer plane, and furnished his Boston home to suit his changing moods. One room for each, hung in appropriate colors, furnished with befitting books and objects, and provided with sources of the proper sensations of light, heat, sound, taste, and odor. Once he heard of a man in the South who was shunned and feared for the blasphemous things he read in prehistoric books and clay tablets smuggled from India and Arabia. Him he visited, living with him and sharing his studies for 7 years, till horror overtook them one midnight in an unknown and archaic graveyard, and only one emerged where two had entered. Then he went back to Arkham, the terrible witch-haunted old town of his forefathers in New England, and had experiences in the dark amidst the hoary willows and tottering gambrel roofs, which made him seal forever certain pages in the diary of a wild-minded ancestor. But these horrors took him only to the edge of reality, and were not of the true dream country he had known in youth, so that at 50 he despaired of any rest or contentment in a world grown too busy for beauty and too shrewd for dream. Having perceived at last the hollowness and futility of real things, Carter spent his days in retirement and in wistful, disjointed memories of his dream-filled youth. He thought it rather silly that he bothered to keep on living at all, and got from a South American acquaintance a very curious liquid to take him to oblivion without suffering. Inertia and force of habit, however, caused him to defer action, and he lingered indecisively among thoughts of old times, taking down the strange hangings from his walls and refitting the house as it was in his early boyhood, purple panes, Victorian furniture, and all. With the passage of time, he became almost glad he had lingered, for his relics of youth and his cleavage from the world made life and sophistication seem very distant and unreal. So much so that a touch of magic and expectancy stole back into his nightly slumbers. For years those slumbers had known only such twisted reflections of everyday things as the commonest slumbers know. But now there returned a flicker of something stranger and wilder, something of vaguely awesome imminence, which took the form of tinsely clear pictures from his childhood days, and made him think of little inconsequential things he had long forgotten. He would often awake calling for his mother and grandfather, both in their graves for a quarter of a century. Then one night his grandfather reminded him of a key. The gray old scholar, as vivid as in life, spoke long and earnestly of their ancient line, and of the strange visions of the delicate and sensitive men who composed it. He spoke of the flame-eyed crusader who learnt wild secrets of the Saracens that held him captive, and of the first Sir Randolph Carter who studied magic when Elizabeth was queen. He spoke, too, of that Edmund Carter who had just escaped hanging in the Salem witchcraft trials, and who he had placed in an antique box a great silver key handed down from his ancestors. Before Carter awakened, the gentle visitant had told him where to find that box, that carved oak box of archaic wonder whose grotesque lid no hand had raised for 2 centuries. In the dust and shadows of the great attic he found it, remote and forgotten, at the back of a drawer in a tall chest. It was about a foot square, and its Gothic carvings were so fearful that he did not marvel no person since Edmund Carter had dared to open it. It gave forth no noise when shaken, but was mystic with the scent of unremembered spices. That it held a key was indeed only a dim legend, and Randolph Carter's father had never known such a box existed. It was bound in rusty iron, and no means was provided for working the formidable lock. Carter vaguely understood that he would find within it some key to the lost Gate of Dreams, but of where and how to use it his grandfather had told him nothing. An old servant forced the carven lid, shaking as he did so at the hideous faces leering from the blackened wood, and at some unplaced familiarity. Inside, wrapped in a discolored parchment, was a huge key of tarnished silver, covered with cryptical arabesques, but of any legible explanation there was none. The parchment was voluminous, and held only the strange hieroglyphs of an unknown tongue written with an antique reed. Carter recognized the characters as those he had seen on a certain papyrus scroll belonging to that terrible scholar of the South, who had vanished one midnight in a nameless cemetery. The man had always shivered when he read the scroll, and Carter shivered now. But he cleaned the key and kept it by him nightly in its aromatic box of ancient oak. His dreams were meanwhile increasing in vividness, and though showing him none of the strange cities and incredible gardens of the old days, were assuming a definite cast whose purpose could not be mistaken. They were calling him back along the years, and with the mingled wills of all his fathers were pulling him toward some hidden and ancestral source. Then he knew he must go into the past and merge himself with old things, and day after day he thought of the hills to the north where haunted Arkham and the rushing Miskatonic and the lonely rustic homestead of his people lay. In the brooding fire of autumn, Carter took the old remembered way past graceful lines of rolling hill and stone-walled meadow, distant vale and hanging woodland, curving road and nestling farmstead, and the crystal windings of the Miskatonic, crossed here and there by rustic bridges of wood or stone. At one bend he saw the group of giant elms among which an ancestor had oddly vanished a century and a half before, and shuddered as the wind blew meaningly through them. Then there was the crumbling farmhouse of old Goody Fowler, the witch, with its little evil windows and great roof sloping nearly to the ground on the north side. He speeded up his car as he passed it, and did not slacken till he had mounted the hill where his mother and her fathers before her were born, and where the old white house still looked proudly across the road at the breathlessly lovely panorama of rock slope and verdant valley, with the distant spires of Kingsport on the horizon, and hints of the archaic dream-laden sea in the farthest background. Then came the steeper slope that held the old Carter place he had not seen in over 40 years. Afternoon was gone when he reached the foot, and at the bend halfway up he paused to scan the outspread countryside, golden and glorified in the slanting floods of magic poured out by a western sun. All the strangeness and expectancy of his recent dreams seemed present in this hushed and unearthly landscape, and he thought of the unknown solitudes of other planets as his eyes traced out the velvet and deserted lawns shining vigilant between their tumbled walls. The clumps of fairy forest setting off far lines of purple hills beyond hills, and the spectral wooded valley dipping down in shadow to dark hollows where trickling waters crooned and gurgled among swollen and distorted roots. Something made him feel that motors did not belong in the realm he was seeking, so he left his car at the edge of the forest, and putting the great key in his coat pocket, walked up on the hill. Woods now engulfed him utterly, though he knew the house was on a high knoll that cleared the trees except to the north. He wondered how it would look, for it had been left vacant and untended through his neglect since the death of his strange great-uncle Christopher 30 years before. In his boyhood, he had reveled through long visits there, and had found weird marvels in the woods beyond the orchard. Shadows thickened around him, for the night was near. Once a gap in the trees opened up to the right, so that he saw off across leagues of twilight meadow, and spied the old Congregational steeple on Central Hill in Kingsport, pink with the last flush of day, the panes of the little round windows blazing with reflected fire. Then, when he was in deep shadow again, he recalled with a start that the glimpse must have come from childish memory alone, since the old white church had long been torn down to make room for the Congregational hospital. He had read of it with interest, for the paper had told about some strange burrows or passages found in the rocky hill beneath. Through his puzzlement a voice piped, and he started again at its familiarity after long years. Old Benijah Corey had been his Uncle Christopher's hired man, and was aged even in those far-off times of his boyhood visits. Now he must be well over 100, but that piping voice could come from no one else. He could distinguish no words, yet the tone was haunting and unmistakable. To think that old Benijah should still be alive. "Mr. Randy, Mr. Randy, whar be ye? Do you want to skeer your Aunt Marthy plumb to death? Hain't she told ye to keep nigh the place in the afternoon and get back fur dark? Randy, Randy! He's the beatin'est boy for running off in the woods. I see half the time a settin' moonin' round that snake den in the upper timber lot. Hee-yaw, Randy!" Randolph Carter stopped in the pitched darkness and rubbed his hand across his eyes. Something was queer. He had been somewhere he ought not to be, had strayed very far away to places where he had not belonged, and was now inexcusably late. He had not noticed the time on the Kingsport steeple, though he could easily have made it out with his pocket telescope, but he knew his lateness was something very strange and unprecedented. He was not sure he had his little telescope with him, and put his hand to his blouse pocket to see. No, it was not there. But there was the big silver key he had found in a box somewhere. Uncle Chris had told him something odd once about an old unopened box with a key in it, but Aunt Martha had stopped the story abruptly, saying it was no kind of thing to tell a child whose head was already too full of queer fancies. He tried to recall just where he had found the key, but something seemed very confused. He guessed it was in the attic at home in Boston, and dimly remembered bribing Parks with half his week's allowance to help him open the box and keep quiet about it. But when he remembered this, the face of Parks came up very strangely, as if wrinkles of long years had fallen upon the brisk little Cockney. "Randy? Randy? Hi, Randy!" A swaying lantern came around the black bend, and old Benijah bounced on the silent and bewildered form of the pilgrim. "Darn ye, boy, so there ye be. Ain't you got a tongue in your head that you can't answer a body? I've been calling this half hour, and ye must have heard me long ago. Don't you know your Aunt Marthy's all a fidget over your being out after dark? Wait till I tell your Uncle Chris when he gets home. You'd orter know these here woods ain't no fittin' place to be traipsin' this hour. These things abroad, what don't do nobody no good, as my grandsire knowed for me. Come on, Mr. Randy, or Hannah won't keep supper no longer. So Randolph Carter was marched up the road where wondering stars glimmered through high autumn boughs, and dogs barked as the yellow light of small pane windows shone out at the farther turn, and the Pleiades twinkled across the open knoll where a gate gambrel roof stood black against the dim west. Aunt Martha was in the doorway and did not scold too hard when Benijah shoved the truant in. She knew Uncle Chris well enough to expect such things of the Carter blood. Randolph did not show his key, but ate his supper in silence and protested only when bedtime came. He sometimes dreamed better when awake, and he wanted to use that key. In the morning, Randolph was up early and would have run off to the upper timber lot if Uncle Chris had not caught him and forced him into his chair by the breakfast table. He looked impatiently around the low-pitched room with the rag carpet and exposed beams and corner posts, and smiled only when the orchard boughs scratched at the leaded panes of the rear window. The trees and the hills were close to him, and formed the gates of that timeless realm which was his true country. Then, when he was free, he felt in his blouse pocket for the key, and being reassured, skipped off across the orchard to the rise beyond, where the wooded hill climbed again to heights even of treeless knoll. The floor of the forest was mossy and mysterious, and great lichened rocks rose vaguely here and there in the dim light, like druid monoliths among the swollen and twisted trunks of a sacred grove. Once, in his ascent, Randolph crossed a rushing stream whose falls a little way off sang runic incantations to the lurking fauns and acopans and dryads. Then he came to the strange cave in the forest slope, the dreaded snake den, which country folk shunned, and a way from which Benijah had warned him again and again. It was deep, far deeper than anyone but Randolph suspected, for the boy had found a fissure in the farthermost black corner that led to a loftier grotto beyond, a haunting, sepulchral place whose granite walls held a curious illusion of conscious artifice. On this occasion he crawled in as usual, lighting his way with matches filched from the sitting-room match-safe, and edging through the final crevice with an eagerness hard to explain even to himself. He could not tell why he approached the farther wall so confidently, or why he instinctively drew forth the great silver key as he did so. But on he went, and when he danced back to the house that night, he offered no excuses for his lateness, nor heeded in the least the reproofs he gained for ignoring the noontide dinner horn altogether. Now it is agreed by all the distant relatives of Randolph Carter that something occurred to heighten his imagination in his 10th year. His cousin, Ernest B. Aspinwall, Esquire, of Chicago, is fully 10 years his senior, and distinctly recalls a change in the boy after the autumn of 1883. Randolph had looked on scenes of fantasy that few others can even have beheld, and stranger still were some of the qualities which he showed in relation to very mundane things. He seemed, in fine, to have picked up an odd gift of prophecy, and reacted unusually to things which, though at the time without meaning, would later found to justify the singular impressions. In subsequent decades, as new inventions, new names, and new events appeared one by one in the book of history, people would now and then recall wonderingly how Carter had years before let fall some careless word of undoubted connection with what was then far in the future. He did not himself understand these words, or know why certain things made him feel certain emotions, but fancied that some unremembered dream must be responsible. Twilight realms where magic mold.
Greetings. Welcome. Greetings and salutations.
Hi. I'm just trying to sort my audio settings out. Is that better?
Okay. I don't know.
Seems better when I put it through the speakerphone.
It all sounds the same to me. Yeah.
He's just kind of. It's just quite quiet. But you know, if I
That
had some
sounds pretty loud
headphones,
to
it'd
me.
probably be better. But
Yeah,
yeah,
sounds
well,
super, sounds super loud.
so
Maybe
my
I'll take.
microphone's good, but maybe turn me
Oh,
down a
you're
bit.
good. What's up? How's it going?
I'm good, man. I was just chilling, listening to Jack. It's like late.
Yeah,
It's like
it's a fun show, right?
11:30.
I like Jack.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's almost bedtime. But
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So what were you commenting on? I didn't understand your comment.
it was good to chat to you. Oh, it was in relation to the quote you quoted. You quoted someone. What was it? You said something.
Do you
It
remember
was like
which
a
one it
quote,
was?
like a wise saying sort of thing, and I was just responding to that, really.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do that a lot. I was quoting Benjamin Franklin this morning. I've been studying him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I like
So
old
quiet.
Benjamin Franklin.
Oh yeah, yeah, ex-president of the America.
No, yeah, he was never a president. He was a
Oh,
forefather. He's a,
what
a
what
well respected, a well
what did
respected
he?
early American.
Oh yeah, of course. I've heard of him.
Yeah,
But
he was diplomat to France.
mm-hmm.
He enjoyed Parisian society.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I've been to Paris. I've never been to America, but I've been to Paris a
Okay.
couple of times. So
It's
I
nice.
like.
They're sexy. They're sexy people, right? They have a reputation for romance.
Yeah, I love the French. I love the
Do you?
culture. I love the language. C'est très
Okay.
bien.
Parlez français.
Un petit peu, but it's been a long time, and
Okay.
I forget so many words.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah,
no,
my French is nil.
no, no.
Nine.
I did really well at school. We did our GCSEs before we left school, and I French was the only subject that I got an A in, so it was like
Okay.
top grade. I got a B in
Yeah,
German, so yeah,
I
it was
thought
like.
you might. Yeah, I thought you might have a little bit of that je ne sais quoi.
hmm I just love languages. I've always been attracted to different languages, and just like even music. Obviously, music's the universal language. But yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like language too. That's what got me into Chinese culture. Is their a language? It's
Yeah.
written form actually.
Uh-huh. I was going to ask actually. I was just curious. What brought you to China? Like, how did you get there and like stay there for so long? Like,
Well,
what is it?
it's a long story, but I can give you the
Mm,
shortened version.
mm,
Um,
mm.
I grew up near Chinatown in Los Angeles, California, and so
Oh
I
yeah.
would go there a lot. And I liked all aspects of the Chinese culture. I just found it to be one of the more flamboyant, attractive cultures that were represented in LA. I didn't
Yeah.
get into and but I was interested in all cultures, like yourself. And so
Sure.
I'd cruise around the city, and I told my dad I wanted to study, foreign cultures, and he actually recommended that I study the Chinese. He said they had some, something to offer in the form of wisdom.
Well, yeah, they've got. I've learned they've got probably one of the most ancient cultures in the world
Right, right.
that still sort of exists.
Yeah, continuous. It's
Yeah.
probably the most ancient continuous culture that hasn't been interrupted.
There you go. So you think they might have the Chinese might have some wisdom to share or whatever, and it turns out
Absolutely.
they fucking do.
Yeah.
You got to translate it and like understand it, obviously. Like, but there's a lot there.
Right. Yeah, so when I got into it, like I
Mm.
discovered stuff like, Qigong and Kung Fu and
Yeah,
philosophers like Lao Tzu. And
that too.
I bought it. I bought into the whole thing, with hook, line, and sinker.
And so I always wanted to come here. I wanted to come in high school, but they didn't have any exchange programs. So it wasn't until after I was like well out of university and had been working for like half a decade that I found an opportunity to come over here to a university for a poetry program. So I was research. Yeah, I was a research student in a poetry program here in Beijing.
Brilliant. I love poetry as well. That's one of my other things. I love. Mm.
Yeah, I got here when I was 28, and they asked me when I got off the plane. They said, "What are you doing here?" Like, you know, the customs officials. And I said, "Well, you know, I came here." I said, "I came here because I want to come here." And they're like, "Well, how long do you plan on staying?" I said, "I don't know, 30 years maybe." I was just joking, right? But it's turned out to be. I'm in my 25th year right now, so.
So was it hard? Was it difficult to get a visa or whatever?
Be careful what you wish for. It took me a while because I had to find a correspondence and I had to get in a program. And in the early days, so I got here in 2001.
Yeah.
And in those days, it was a little harder to get here, I think, than later. Later on, lots of people started coming over. It was much easier. But when I came, it was pretty tough.
So
I mean, you know, like anything.
Do you have a dual membership? What do you call it? Nationality?
No. The U.S. and China doesn't do that. No.
They'll never give you one.
No. I mean, I could probably get one if I wanted, but it would mean giving up my U.S. passport, so I'm not going to do that.
So
I'm a proud American.
Do you have a plan? You'll always be an American, of course. Do you have a plan to go back to the US or?
Oh yeah, my plan has always been to return. You know, I figured I'd do my time over here and learn something of value, and then come back and teach it to, you know, Americans if they want to retire there. At least I've got land, I've got property, I've got a couple of locations. And,
oh yeah, you were saying you got that. So got that place in where was it, Kansas or somewhere you were going to offer to Jack?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, got a nice little house there, a little cabin in the woods. Well, that's a house. It's a 3-bedroom, proper A-frame house, but it is what it is.
Well, that's capital, man. That's like equity and whatever. Isn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
Cool stuff.
So good fun. That's basically my story, though. But I got over here. I studied literature. I worked in TV, and I've just been working in education. You know, I was the type of kid that always wanted to get the hell out of school, and I thought by completing school I could escape. But then I got involved in university, and university was a lot more interesting than, you know, high school or anything else.
Oh yeah.
And so I ended up. I swore I would never go back when I left. I actually dropped out in junior high in the 7th grade, and I'm like, I'll never fucking go back to a school. And so I started beating the street and causing trouble, you know, becoming a bit of a impromptu gangster in LA, and that didn't work out. You know, the cops beat you up and shit. So my dad forced me to go back to school in the end of the 8th grade. You know, I took a gap year a little earlier than most. And then when I got back in, I was kind of remotivated, and I got involved in, like, you know, good fun stuff. Kung Fu, I was in the surf club, I did baseball, all that kind of shit.
Did you I was going to ask, what was I going to ask? Did you ever join a gang when you were in LA?
Yeah, I got jumped into pretty much every gang on the street. I got jumped into the Crips. I got jumped into the Bloods. I got jumped into 18th Street Latinos. You know,
right?
But it wasn't like you had a choice. You know, if you were rolling through their hood, then they would just gather and jump you, and then they would tell you you were in their gang. You know, they'd say you just got jumped into the Blood Kingdom SA. You know, and then you get beat up by 15 darkies or whatever, and
Jesus,
8 to 10 anyway at a time, and then you'd have to start wearing their colors and hanging out with them a little bit. Being a white kid growing up in the inner city wasn't easy.
Why?
You know, whenever you heard "Get Whitey," you knew it was time to run.
Yeah, I've lived in cities myself, you know, and I mean, I was brought up in the countryside, kind of, but I kind of got bored with that village type small town life, and I just by 17 I was just like, right, I need to get a place of my own. I'm moving to the city, and the nearest city was Bristol, so I moved there and got my own place and just started living for me, you know, for the first time ever, without any obviously parental influence or anything. So I just got into so much, like, well, you know, my 17th year, I lost my virginity. I was fucking awesome to a beautiful woman. I started smoking weed as well, and I took my first acid trip, LSD, at 17. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I just
be, right?
I didn't. I wasn't one of the didn't have the horrible bad trip the first time. It was just amazing. Literally just expanded my mind in so many ways, and I was just like, wow, okay, like, so that conceptually, that fucking, like, my mind is just being blown.
Change the
Oh,
world.
you know,
You got to
I was with
initiate it
good
into the
people.
path of the shaman.
Yeah, it's been kind of a semi-spiritual quest ever since. So I used to read a lot of spiritual books and stuff when I was 17. So I've got all these, you know, I've studied most of the world's religions. Never wanted to join any of them because it was mostly Christianity, but that, you know, even that just never appealed to me.
I broke away from
dodgy.
Christianity early on, but I was the opposite. I wanted to join them all. I wanted to get initiated in every coven and fucking witch cult and, you know, shaman circle. And I went to powwows, and I joined the esoteric order of Dagon really early on. That's the one I'm still an advocate member of. But I got my Pope card from Pope Runyon, right? So I'm a Pope. So the Pope isn't dead. Yeah, I'm a Pope of Discordia.
Oh, cool. I've heard about them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
So the Pope's not dead. He's still kicking.
Is Discordia an actual religion?
No, it's with the Grandmaster dead. I mean, it's kind of defunct a little bit. But
like
yeah,
an
it's a fun thing that Robert Anton Wilson started. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've read a few of his books. He's brilliant writer.
Yeah. Prometheus Rising is a really good one. Like, I reread it every year. It's worth its weight in gold.
Mm-hmm.
I read that motherfucker for the first time when I was 13, and I never looked back. It's absolutely the seminal novel that set me on my journey.
Okay, I don't think I've read that one. Let's check that one out.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely download it. You know, Prometheus Rising.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely worth it.
I'll note that one.
And it's a real easy read. Like, he wrote it in a real easy manner. Like, it's not full of jargon or nothing. It's just, and it's got exercises at the end of each chapter that you can do to learn the material. Yeah, really good fun.
I've always been attracted to, like, original thinkers or people that just, you know, thought outside the box or just thought differently to other people and challenged, you know, ideas and challenged people and just, you know, brave seekers. Like, I don't know, like Alan Watts was one, you know, Alan Watts, and he lived in California, didn't he, for a while? He had a houseboat, apparently, didn't he, near San Francisco?
That's right.
That's
these guys all ran in the same circles, you know, like Peter Carroll, Robert Anton Wilson, Alan Watts, Timothy Leary.
Leary, yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
All these guys were friends.
I've read some great books.
Crowley.
Yeah. So
that was my hood, man. Those were my people, and a lot of them were Brits too that came over and wanted to enjoy the California spirit. California is a great place for, like, openness of spirituality. That's the thing.
Sure about. And weed, apparently now.
Yeah, they promote it. They promote mind change agents and all kinds of, you know, open curiosity, and nothing's foreboding, you know. Everything's allowed.
I've heard California's. Yeah, I've heard California's got really expensive lately, though.
Oh, like, yeah, fuck. Everyone
no one can afford to live there.
Yeah, they've destroyed it. It used to be a paradise. Now it's a gangland.
It's crazy, man. Do you think a lot of that? Do you think a lot of that is down to immigration? Or
yeah, it's the CIA and the deep state. They want to keep it dangerous enough so that they can live in gated communities, and then everybody else just kind of has to suffer. They enjoy that. They enjoy that violence and that suffering. They like to see it firsthand. I think they feed on the Garmonbozia from inside their mansions. You know, I think you're probably familiar with that.
Like the loosh.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I still call it Garmonbozia from the David Lynch days of Twin Peaks.
I'm not familiar with that reference.
Okay.
What does that mean?
He just died. It's the same thing, loosh, but he called it Garmonbozia.
Garmonbozia.
He did a whole TV series on it called Twin Peaks.
I've heard. It was. I've heard of it.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, it was kind of like it's become a cult classic. It's a good one. I rewatched it recently with a gal here from the channel, Lady Paranorma.
Yeah, so it's just a fascinating world. There's so much to discover. There's so many ideas and so many different perspectives and different ways of life, and just I just think how can you just be settled? How can you just stay with what you know or what you were raised with, and it's just blah blah. Like people that live in the same town, they never move from where they they don't want to travel, they don't want to expand their mind. They're just like, no, I'm happy here. I'm happy with what I know, and it's just like, I don't know, we're not all the same, you know. Not everybody's adventurous, maybe, but I've always just been fascinated by other cultures. Like,
yeah, I could tell that about you right away. You're a true seeker. You're genuine. You're in it to win it. You want to learn and grow and teach and love and do all those wonderful things that life has to offer. It's good magic.
Yeah, I really want to be positive. I want to make ultimately. I really want to make a positive impact in the world. And just however I can. I mean, I didn't always, but then I wasn't always as consciously aware as I am now.
Right.
But now it's like I'm so, I don't know, like in touch with my karma, if you like, that I can't even. I can barely steal a little. I can barely take a little chocolate bar off someone without feeling bad or knowing that something bad is going to happen to me as a result. It's like, what the fuck? Never mind robbing a bank or I can't even.
Well,
it's just great, crazy.
In my mind, that's the truth of breaking free from karma. Is that you notice its immediate reaction, and so that's what we consider to be real magic. Or when I say good magic all the time, it means that for every ounce of positive effort that you put forward, you're going to get a response from the universal energy. And if you want something big, if you want a big change, or you need a house or a car or a wife or whatever you want, the cosmos will respond to you immediately when your karma's clear. Once you've cleared karmatic debt, everything just comes easy at that point. And like you said, you just don't do no bad act, because if you do a bad act, you know that the reverberation is going to be immediate and big.
Yeah, it's true.
So once you've mastered karma, you're way ahead of the game,
Oh, I'm conscious of it, and obviously,
master it. When you learn magic, you master it. You don't just become conscious of it. You break free from the chains that bind you. The karma, the zodiac, other people, human emotion, all of these things can be overcome. I think that was the real message of the Christ and the Buddha and the Taoists. It's using the path of liberation, right?
Yeah, it's deep.
And if not, what else?
What else were they talking about, right? Because wherever you go, there you are. And a lot of people think that death is going to release them from the game. It's not. If you haven't leveled up, you're just going to be a hungry ghost when you die. You know, if you level up, then you'll become you won't become anything. You are a Shen, what we call in Chinese a Shen. A Shen. That's the next level of advancement in the Chinese system anyway, is to become Shen.
Yeah. But there's something of I've been thinking about this like kind of thing for a long time, like reincarnation and like what happens after we die. And I just think I've heard there's a theory that there's like reincarnation is like a soul trap. So it's like when you
this one's Gnostic.
The aim is kind of the aim seems to be for most consciously aware people not to come back, not to reincarnate, to I don't know, go off into whatever it is, nirvana, eternal paradise, the alternate different planets, who knows, you know.
Yeah,
we
call it. Yeah, there's different things too, I think.
I've visited
different locations.
Maybe we can choose, maybe we can't, you know. Will it be completely our choice when we get like a menu or some kind of
no, it's not the way it works.
Multiple choice question.
Well, if you've been way out there deep in dreamland, then you've already seen the various locations that exist in conjunction to our prime material plane. So you kind of know where you're going. You'll be oriented and stuff. I believe, because I've been there and I've experienced it, and I've seen the dead return, and I've died in return. Yeah. So I've had 3 near-death experiences where, you know, like one was alcohol poisoning and I was dead for like 30 seconds. Another one, I mean, I could tell you all about them, but you know, it's irrelevant at this point. But the point is that I have the experience, so I kind of know what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And I'm a dreamer. I visit nightly. I visit the realms beyond nightly. So
you're talking about astral travel.
Well, yeah, and lucid dreaming, they're a little different. Astral travel is when you're awake, and then seated meditation, and then visitation to dreamland can also be a form of astral travel, but it's a little different.
I've got I've got limited experience of either, but I'm really, really curious. Like I used to have my dreams. I used to have, when I was a bit younger, I used to have such intense and just crazy dreams that just
I can imagine.
I don't tend to have hardly any anymore. I mean, occasionally I'll have one, but they're very few and far between now. I mean, maybe it's because of my age, maybe it's because I'm in my late 40s, or maybe it's because I regularly smoke, you know, the cannabis.
I don't think it's any of those things. Do you work a routine, like prosaic job, like day to day?
I can still remember some of the dreams I had. You know, I had this one. I can never forget it. It was, you know, maybe 10, 20 years ago.
Sorry, did you hear my question a second ago? I said, do you work like a regular day-to-day prosy job?
Oh, sorry. No, not at the moment. I don't. No, I'm not. I'm still finding my. I'm still trying to find my way. My
wow, that's
career.
Interesting. Yeah, when you're unanchored and you don't have really like that kind of prosy thing going on, it seems like you should dream more. But I got to tell you, man, I just wanted to tune in for a minute to say hello to you and ask you like, what that question was about and try to clear that up. If you're back around in like 12 or 13 hours, I'll plan on doing a stream later tonight. But it's 7 a.m. right now, and I got to run, man. I got to head off to the office.
Oh, sure, no worries. Yeah, I'll be I could join you tomorrow. I'll have had some sleep then, so it'll be like morning for me. So that'll be cool.
Yeah. My schedule always crosses paths in the wrong direction with everyone. You know, being on the opposite side of the world for many people.
Yeah, that was not that time. The other morning, that was when Billy the Kid jumped on.
Right.
I was like,
at the end of his bender.
Yeah,
I like to have fun sometimes too, though, so it's no big deal. I can appreciate Billy. Yeah, good magic though, and thanks for stopping by, Ricardo. Always good to see you.
No worries. Yeah,
it's been great. Prospera.
It's been great talking to you, man, and hopefully we'll talk soon. I'm gonna go back to Jack if he's still live. Or
yeah, do it. Go over there. Tell them I said hello if you jump on. Did you go on panel when you were over there?
no, I've not actually. I've never been on Jack's panel, but
Oh, okay.
I I don't really like Stephen, like King Stephen that
No,
much. So
that's part of it for me too. I can't fight with people. That's not why I'm here.
he's kind of you know, what is he like? He's a trickster. 1 minute
Yeah,
he'll pretend to be like all good and heavenly and all, you play like, and then the next minute he's just I've listened to him so many times on his own streams, just completely
right.
like slagging everyone off and just being
Well,
total turning on
yeah.
them. It's like, what
Yeah,
the fuck?
he's a self-admitted schizophrenic. He said openly that he has schizophrenia, manic depression, and
Oh, he is.
bipolar. So, yeah,
Oh,
that's what he
wow.
said. Yeah, so
You
he's a
could use
basket
that as an
case.
excuse, though.
He
A
does. Yeah, he's
mental
just
health
using it as an
excuse.
excuse. Yeah,
He doesn't
he's
sound
really
that
just
mental.
he's just a narcissistic manipulator is all he is. Yeah.
Well, you got to watch out for these kind of people, because I think there's quite a lot of them on.
Oh, absolutely. And like the level of like ennui and what am I looking for? Like jadedness and bitterness is just rampant on the internet, man. It's weird. It's really weird. That's why they say go out and touch grass, right? Get a day job. All right. Well, much love to you, Ricardo. I really do. I have to bone out the stream, man. I appreciate you stopping by. Y'all good looking sex people, keep doing good magic. And until next time, Grand Wizard of the Esoteric Order of Dagon, Pope of Discordia, 100-day challenge, way of the psionic agent. Guys, make sure you hit the like buttons. Keep them barking like Pavlov's dog. And check me out at buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. Until next time, ad astra per aspera, carpe diem, and good magic.